Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Her friends can see she lost a good man weeks before she'll ever admit it out loud. Women rarely talk about this with men, but we see it all the time. If you recently got rejected or she pulled away, and you're wondering if you actually mattered, here's what you need to understand. Her friends are noticing things right now. The way she talks about you when you're not around. How she compares every new guy to what you had. The way her energy shifts when someone mentions your name. This isn't about getting her back or playing games. This is about understanding something that gives you closure and control. When you know what her friends notice before she admits she messed up, you stop needing her to say it directly. You move forward knowing your value was real, confirmed by people watching her process this loss. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what signs her friends see that prove she's realizing what she lost, why they notice before she admits it, and how this timeline sets you free without needing her validation. Before we go deeper, let me be clear about what this video is and isn't. This isn't about getting her back or playing games. This isn't revenge content. This is about understanding female psychology around loss and ego protection, so you can move forward with clarity instead of confusion. The truth is, women rarely admit romantic mistakes openly. Not because we're dishonest, but because admitting you lost a good man means admitting you misjudged someone's value. That's a hit to the ego most people avoid. But just because she won't say, it doesn't mean she's not processing it. Here's what you need to understand about why her friends notice these changes before she'll ever admit them out loud. Female ego protection is incredibly strong when it comes to relationship decisions. Think about it. When a woman ends things with someone, she's making a public statement about that person's value. She's saying, at least externally, that he wasn't good enough, and women face real social consequences for those judgments. Her friends watched the relationship. They formed opinions about you. If she now admits she was wrong about ending it, she's not just admitting a personal mistake. She's admitting she misjudged someone in front of her entire social circle. That's why the admission process takes so long, if it happens at all. But here's where it gets interesting. Her friends aren't carrying that same ego investment. They're external observers. They don't lose face by noticing she's processing regret. In fact, they're often the first to see the behavioral changes because they're watching her without the filter of pride that she's using on herself. This creates a timeline gap that most men don't understand. Friends notice changes 2 to 6 weeks after a breakup. She internally realizes what she lost around 4 to 8 weeks later. But the verbal admission, if it ever comes, might take 3 to 6 months because of how much ego protection she has to overcome. That timeline matters because it means you can have proof of your value without ever hearing her say it directly. So here's exactly what her friends start noticing. I'm breaking this into 3 categories. First, behavioral changes. How she acts differently in social situations, dating patterns, lifestyle choices. Second, conversation pattern shifts. What she talks about, how she talks about you, what she asks mutual friends. And third, emotional indicators. The energy shifts and nostalgic behaviors her friends sense even when she's not saying anything directly. These signs appear in this specific order because of how women process loss. Stay with me through all 3 categories because understanding this pattern is what gives you closure. Let's start with the behavioral changes that friends notice immediately. Sign number 1. Her social behavior shifts. Friends notice she's going out differently than she did right after the breakup. Maybe she was partying hard for the first few weeks, trying to prove she's fine. But now she's pulling back. Or she's avoiding certain places you used to go together. Her friends see her physically turn down invitations to spots that have memories attached to you. That avoidance is actually processing. She's not over it. She's protecting herself from reminders because those reminders are making her feel something she's not ready to admit yet. Sign number 2. Her dating pattern changes completely. Her friends watch her go on dates with new guys, and they can tell her heart's not in it. She's comparing. She might not say your name, but they hear her mentioning things you used to do. The way you made her laugh, how you remembered small details, how you never made her feel anxious about where things stood. Friends notice when she's not excited about dates anymore. When she's going through the motions, that's internal comparison happening in real time. She's measuring every new interaction against what you had, and the new guys aren't measuring up. Sign number 3. Lifestyle regression. This one's subtle, but friends always pick up on it. She starts reverting to habits from before she met you. Maybe you got her into working out, or trying new restaurants, or being more social. Now she's back to old patterns. Staying home more, less adventurous. Friends notice because she seemed to be growing when you were around, and now she's contracting. That regression happens because you were influencing her in positive ways she didn't fully appreciate until you were gone. She's realizing the growth wasn't just her. It was you creating an environment where she felt motivated to be better. The psychology here is simple. Each of these behavioral changes shows internal comparison. She's not just missing you. She's realizing the difference between life with you and life without you. And that realization is visible to everyone around her before she'll verbalize it to anyone, including herself. But friends don't just notice actions. They notice what she talks about. And this is where the evidence gets even clearer. Sign number 4. She brings you up in conversation indirectly. Friends notice her dropping your name in stories that don't require mentioning you. Talking about places you went together. Events from when you were dating. Using we when describing past experiences even though you're broken up. She's not saying I miss him, but she's keeping you present in conversation. That's cognitive processing. When someone is truly over a relationship, they don't reference the person. They've mentally filed them away. The fact that her friends are hearing your name means you're still taking up mental space, and that space is connected to positive memories she's reliving. Sign number 5. She defends the breakup too much. Her friends ask how she's doing, and instead of just saying she's fine, she over-explains why ending things was the right choice. She lists reasons. She builds a case. Friends notice this because confident decisions don't need defending. When you're sure about something, you don't keep justifying it to everyone around you. That defensive pattern reveals doubt. She's not trying to convince her friends. She's trying to convince herself. And friends can hear the difference between genuine confidence and rationalization. Sign number 6. She asks about you indirectly. This is the one that friends always catch. She doesn't ask directly how you're doing. That would be admitting she still cares. Instead, she probes. She asks mutual friends casual questions. Mentions she saw your car somewhere and wonders if you still go to that gym. Brings up your name in group settings to see if anyone has updates. Friends recognize this immediately because it's such obvious curiosity masked as casual conversation. She wants to know if you're seeing someone, if you've moved on, if you're doing better without her. That curiosity comes from comparison. She's measuring her own emotional state against what she imagines yours is. The pattern here is verbal processing. She's talking around you, about you, defending against you, and asking about you because you're occupying her thoughts. And friends hear all of it before she admits to herself that she's still emotionally invested in whether losing you was the right decision. Around the 10 to 12 minute mark, this is where it gets deeper. Because friends don't just observe actions and words, they sense emotional shifts that happen beneath the surface. Sign number 7. Her energy changes when you're mentioned. Friends notice this immediately Because emotional reactions are hard to fake. Maybe she goes defensive when someone brings you up. Or she gets quiet. Or there's this subtle shift where she becomes nostalgic and distant. She might even overcompensate by acting extra casual, which friends see right through. The specific reaction doesn't matter as much as the fact that there is a reaction. When someone is truly over an ex, mentions of that person don't create energy shifts. They're neutral. The fact that your name triggers something visible means you're still emotionally significant. Friends can read that body language, that tone change, that momentary pause before she responds, the way her face shifts for just a second before she controls it. It's all evidence of unresolved feelings she's trying to hide. Sign number 8. Nostalgic behavior her friends observe. She starts watching shows you watched together, going back to restaurants you went to, listening to music from when you were dating. Friends notice because she's actively choosing to surround herself with reminders. This isn't accidental. When you're trying to move on from someone, you avoid triggers. When you're processing loss and possibly regretting that loss, you seek out triggers. She's creating opportunities to remember what it felt like to be with you. And friends see her doing this, even though she'd never admit that's what she's doing. Sign number 9. She compares new relationships to what you have. This is the one friends always notice because it's so obvious from the outside. She'll mention how this new guy doesn't text like you did, or doesn't plan dates the way you planned them, or doesn't make her feel as comfortable. Friends hear constant comparison because she's using you as the standard. She might not realize she's doing it, but friends absolutely do. And that comparison reveals something critical. She's not looking for someone different. She's looking for someone who makes her feel the way you made her feel. And she's discovering that's harder to find than she thought it would be. These emotional indicators are where the internal realization really starts to solidify. Her friends are watching her process feelings she hasn't named yet. They see her wrestling with whether ending things was actually the right choice. They observe her trying to recreate what you had with someone new and failing. All of this is happening before she'll admit to anyone, maybe even herself, that she lost someone who was actually good for her. But here's the timeline most men don't understand about when all of this comes together. There's a specific sequence to how this unfolds, and understanding it is what gives you the closure you're looking for. Friends typically notice these behavioral and emotional changes 2 to 6 weeks after the breakup. That's when the patterns become obvious to external observers. She's past the initial "I'm fine" phase. She's settling into post-breakup life. And that's when the comparison process really kicks in. Friends see her going through the motions with new people, avoiding reminders of you, asking indirect questions about you. They see all 9 of these signs playing out in real time. But here's what's happening internally that friends can't see. She's usually 4 to 8 weeks behind the external signs before she internally realizes what she lost. That gap exists because of cognitive dissonance. She made a decision to end things. She told herself reasons. She justified it to friends and family. Admitting she was wrong, even to herself, means accepting that all of that was a mistake. The human brain resists that kind of admission, so she'll explain away the behavioral changes. Tell herself she's not comparing new guys to you. She just has high standards now. Convince herself she mentions you in conversation because those were shared experiences, not because you're still emotionally present. The internal realization happens slowly. It's not a lightning bolt moment. It's gradual recognition over weeks that life without you isn't better. It's just different. And different in ways she didn't expect. She thought she'd feel more free. Instead, she feels like something's missing. She thought new connections would be easier. Instead, everyone seems to fall short. She thought she'd stop thinking about you. Instead, you're a reference point for everything new. That internal realization timeline means that when her friends are noticing these signs at the 6-week mark, she's just starting to consciously process what those signs mean internally. She's entering the awareness phase, and that's still months before she might verbally admit it to anyone. The verbal admission, if it ever comes, takes 3 to 6 months minimum. And for many women, it never comes at all. Because verbalizing means admitting to herself and others that she misjudged someone important. It means her social circle gets to see her being wrong about a relationship decision. It means giving up the narrative she built about why the relationship ended. Most people, men and women, will avoid that level of ego bruising if they possibly can. And here's why this timeline matters so much for you. You don't need to wait for that verbal admission to have proof of your value. Her friends are seeing the evidence at week 6. She's internally processing it by week 8. Whether she admits it at month 6 or never admits it at all doesn't change the fact that the realization exists. The behavioral evidence is the admission. Her friends confirming these patterns is your validation. You were valuable. The proof is in how she's processing your absence, not in whether she ever finds the words to say it out loud. Understanding this timeline is what sets you free. You stop waiting for a confession that might never come because you realize you already have something more reliable than her words. You have observable patterns that her entire social circle can see, which brings us to the final truth about why this pattern exists the way it does. Female ego protection around romantic decisions is so strong that most women will never verbally admit they lost a good man. Not to their friends. Not to you. Sometimes not even fully to themselves. And this isn't a character flaw. This is human psychology. We all protect ourselves from admitting mistakes that affect how others see us. But here's what you need to understand. The absence of verbal admission doesn't mean the absence of realization. She can know she lost something valuable without ever saying those words out loud. Her friends can confirm it through behavioral observation without her ever confirming it verbally. The evidence exists independent of whether she articulates it. What does that mean for you? It means you might never get the satisfaction of hearing her say she was wrong. You might never get that closure conversation where she admits you were better than she realized. And waiting for that moment keeps you trapped in a cycle of hoping for validation that depends entirely on her pride breaking. The controversial truth is this. You don't need her words to move forward. You already have proof of your value. It's in those 9 signs her friends are seeing. It's in the timeline of her processing loss. It's in the behavioral evidence of internal comparison and regret. Whether she finds the courage to admit it verbally or keeps it buried behind ego protection doesn't change the reality of what happened. You were valuable. She's realizing it. Her admission isn't required for that to be true. So let me ask you something about your own experience. Have you noticed any of these signs with her friends? Have mutual friends mentioned changes in her behavior? Which of these 9 signs would give you the most closure? The behavioral changes, the conversation patterns, or the emotional indicators? Drop a comment below and let me know. I read every single comment and respond personally because this isn't just about understanding female psychology. This is about helping men like you maintain dignity and power in situations where you felt powerless. This channel exists to decode the things women rarely say out loud, so you can make decisions from a place of clarity instead of confusion. If this video helped you understand something you've been wondering about, if these patterns gave you the closure you needed, then you're exactly who this content is for. You were valuable. Her friends can see it even if she can't admit it yet. And you don't need her confession to move forward knowing that truth. Whether she ever finds the words or not, you already have everything you need to close this chapter with your self-respect intact.